It's 12:05, and this is Centennial College Radio News. I'm Nicole Watts, here with Sarah, Selvanayagam, and Rachel Muenz. Now, here are the top stories in sports. The Toronto Raptors are back in their first-round series after a win last night at home. The Raptors beat the Orlando Magic in front of a thunderous crowd by a score of 108-94. The Raptors finally got off to a good start, and they led almost the entire game. Toronto's point guards dominated. TJ Ford had his best game of the playoffs with 21 points, while Jose Calderon had 18 points and 13 assists. Jamario Moon was reinserted into the starting lineup and recorded 11 points and 10 rebounds. Meanwhile, Chris Bosh and Jason Capono chipped in with 15 points each. The Raptors now trail the Magic 2-1. Game 4 tips off tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the Air Canada Centre. The Montreal Canadiens began their second-round matchup last night with a huge comeback win against the Philadelphia Flyers. Down 3-2, and with just over a minute left in the game, Montreal went on the power play. They pulled goalie Carey Price to gain a 6-4 man advantage, and Alex Kovalev scored with 29 seconds left to send the game into overtime. Then, just 48 seconds into OT, Tom Kostopoulos scored to win the game for Montreal. The Canadiens now lead the series 1-0 with Game 2 set for Saturday in Montreal. Detroit also began their series last night, with Detroit beating Colorado by a score of 4-3. And starting up tonight are Pittsburgh against New York and Dallas versus San Jose. The Blue Jays are now losers of 4 in a row after getting swept in a 3-game series against the Tampa Bay Rays. They lost last night 5-3 at the Rays' home-away-from-home stadium at Disney World. Jays pitcher Dustin McGowan gets the loss. He walked 7 hitters in just over 4 innings. He was pulled in the 5th. Ex-Jay Eric Hinsky got the game-winning RBI. The Jays go at it again tonight, starting a 3-game series in Kansas City. They'll get a much-needed boost with the return of third baseman Scott Rowland to the lineup. And now to a local story about sports. Ping pong students at Centennial's HP Center are making a racket. After being moved to the stairwells, these students demand a room and more tables. Yuling Wang has the story.
Centennial College students play ping pong in the stairwells of their school. The table, which the college provided, was located in front of the library. Centennial moved it to a new place because of safety concerns. But HP student Shamal, who did not want his last name used, says the conditions under the stairwell are less than pleasant.
Here, but it's very cold inside this place. This is kind of like, and when it gets dark, you can't even see the ball here. There's no light.
The ping pong table in the stairwell attracts a large number of ping pong enthusiasts. Students say that at times there are up to 15 people waiting for their turn. Shamal says that with only one table, students hardly ever get to play an actual game.
Always line up for this one. Like, you have to wait if you want to play. You can't play right away. Like if you want to go over the progress, they have 7 tables, 10 tables. But in here, you have to wait in line to.
Despite only having one table, first-year student Conrad Paliga hopes the college will help them buy a second table. His dream is to start a ping pong club.
I wish there was 2 tables and an actual room for it. Well, actually, this is okay, but 2 tables and like separate room would have been like the best. It would attract a lot more people, I think.
While the college has not yet returned any calls, these students remain hopeful that the college will do something about it. This is Yuling Wang, Centennial College Radio News.
And a David Beckham jersey is the cause of a fight between 2 families. Back in February, after a game in Honolulu, Beckham handed his jersey over to 2 young kids in the stands. Now, the 2 boys, who used to be friends, are fighting over whose jersey it is. The families are now threatening legal action. And on that note, let's send it over to Sarah for some entertainment news.
Thanks, Nicole, and hello, everyone. Oprah's couch now has reason to be afraid. Tom Cruise will be making multiple appearances on The Oprah Show. He will be conferencing in from his home in Telluride, Colorado on May 2nd. Harpo Studios say he will talk about, and I quote, his family, his life, and the future. On May 5th, he will be interviewed on set in Chicago. While he has no new projects to promote, his interviews are meant to mark the 25th anniversary of his work in film. In local news, Humber College comedy students are being graded by locals instead of their professors tonight. The students are at a downtown comedy club, Yuck Yucks, testing out their material on a live audience. Tandy Vella reports. So, we don't have that. Sorry about that. Continuing on in news, In more movie news, Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay premieres this week. The stoner comedy is a follow-up to the first installment, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. The film stars Carl Penn and John Cho, with cameos by Neil Patrick Harris, Ed Helms, and Rob Corddry. Tina Fey makes another foray into the film world with her comedy Baby Mama. Co-starring Amy Poehler, the movie chronicles the journey of a 40-something single woman and the chosen carrier of her unborn child. And that's all from me. Stay tuned for more in sports after the break.
You're eating chunky chicken soup with a fork?
Well, you've got to spear the chicken to get it in your mouth. Look at that. Look at the size of that. You got to use a spoon for those noodles.
Girl, you got some noodles on your fork.
Yeah, but they slide through.
Well, you use the spoon. You use the fork.
That's right.
Is chunky chicken a soup or a meal?
I leave it up to the experts, but I personally...
Why'd you say that?
I know, but I mean, you know, I'm not a connoisseur in the food department, but I'd say it's a meal.
But it is a soup.
It's a meal within a soup can. Let's put it that way.
Campbell's Chunky Chicken. It's the soup that eats like a meal.
And we're back, and I'm Rachel Muenz with even more sports. The Montreal Canadiens are enjoying a well-deserved day off after beating the Flyers in overtime last night. They hope to go ahead 2-0 in the second-round playoff series on Saturday night when they head to Philadelphia for Game 2. In tonight's action, Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins take on the New York Rangers in the first game of their second-round playoff series. Those teams will face off at 7 p.m. in New York. In AHL action, the Toronto Marlies look to take the lead tonight in their first-round playoff series with the San Antonio Rampage. The two teams are tied right now at 2 games apiece. Though the Marlies had an amazing year and were at the top of their division in the regular season, the lowly Rampage have been a challenge for them so far. That game gets started tonight at 8 in San Antonio. And many Canadians would rather be on the golf course than a skating rink in the dead of winter. But for Zamboni operator Troy Forbes, it's not a question of pleasure, it's a question of business. Dave Bowden reports.
Troy Forbes has worked with the City of Toronto Parks Department for more than 20 years. He applied to drive the Zamboni at Nathan Phillips Square for the first time this year, in order to keep working during the winter. While he doesn't mind the job, he says there is one thing about it he could do without.
I just don't deal with the public myself, too. I just stay away.
Forbes says he's a private man who doesn't like interacting with people. For most of his career, he's worked behind the scenes. During his 2 decades with the city, he's performed maintenance, janitorial, and grounds duties. But he says there was one job in particular that he really enjoyed. When he worked as a greenskeeper for the city's golf courses, Forbes says he had everything he needed. Being a greenskeeper allowed him to work at his own pace. Forbes said he preferred the golf course over Nathan Phillips Square because it gave him freedom and privacy.
Yeah, warmer weather. It's just better atmosphere, not as many people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very busy down at City Hall here, right?
But he says his favorite part of working at the golf course was the ability to stick to his motto.
Start work early, finish early.
Forbes says he's waiting anxiously for summer to return so he can get back to his favorite work. But he's happy to wait out winter with the job he has now.
I just go out and flood the ice, and that's it, basically. It's an easy, no-brainer job.
Dave Bowden, Centennial College Radio News.
In basketball, the Toronto Raptors hope to even up their first-round playoff series with the Orlando Magic after finally beating them last night in Game 3. The Raptors trailed 2-1 in the series. Before last night's victory, the Raps looked like they'd continue their string of losses, which started at the end of the regular season. Hopefully they can get a winning streak going this weekend. Game 4 tips off in Toronto on Saturday at 3 p.m. And in baseball, the Blue Jays will try to put a thrashing by the Rays behind them when they take on the Royals in Kansas City tonight. Right now, the Jays are in last place in the East Division with 10 wins and 12 losses so far this season. You can look forward to the game shortly after 8 this evening. And that's all from me. Let's send it back to Nicole for the wrap.
Thanks, Rachel. And that's the news for now. You can hear more news coming up in about 15 minutes on the internet at ondemand.centennialcollege.ca. On behalf of all of us here at Centennial College Radio News, thanks for listening and have a great afternoon.